welcome to the ButThenGod podcast. This is our first episode ever, and I have my dear friend Paige here. She is such an inspiration to me, and I'm so glad that she's able to be here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thanks for having me, Katie.
Of course. I couldn't imagine anyone else that I wanted as my first episode for this. And so this has been a vision that God's given me, and it's been months in the making and months of just waiting and sitting and hearing from the Lord. And I'm just so thankful that you're here to be a part of it. And so,
of course. I mean, I just love sharing what God's done in my life, hearing what God's done in other people's lives. So I'm excited for everything this podcast holds and how God's going to use it.
So, man, there's a lot of things happening in your life. If you want to introduce yourself and let us know just a little bit of like the passions that you have and what you're doing in your life.
Yeah. So again, my name's Paige. I work in ministry. I work in film, and just telling stories for God. I'm from Chicago, went to University of Georgia, so I just got to plug Go Dogs, 2-time in a row national champion. Okay, I'm done with that. But so I've made my way down south, now in South Florida, where it's nice and warm. And
Praise God.
I know. I really love it. But, I grew up going to church when I was like really little. Like we would go to Sunday school, and my mom definitely always like wanted to go to church, but we kind of became the family that we were the creasters. It's like you go on Christmas, you go on Easter, and that's about it. Maybe some sprinkles.
Creasters.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before, but it's a term that I will use from now on.
Yep.
Okay.
that was us. And so, when I got to high school, I would do some stuff because I always believed in God. I always had that foundation of faith, but I really didn't even understand who Jesus was or what a relationship with God was. I was like, oh, here's this like rule book you have to follow, and I don't even really know what the rules are. I just know a lot of people like enjoy this, when I go to church.
Yeah.
So that was about it. And I started doing like some youth group things in high school, but it was really like for community, and I was like, oh, this feels like a good place. But that was it. So I went to college, just did my own thing, lived for myself and myself alone. Nowhere in there was me pursuing God or even understanding anything. So I really just started to have a relationship with God, honestly, 3 years ago when I found Journey and started coming to Journey. And so it's been really new, and he's taken me on a whole roller coaster since then, and just really brought me to where I am now, which is just so fulfilling and so nice. But I didn't have a background. I never thought I would be in ministry. I pursued, worldly things. I wanted to go out. I wanted to be like a Hollywood film person. I was like, I'm going to California. And God had different plans. So, and I'm so happy because it's so much better. But
I truly admire your faith and admire your growth. And I look at you and I know I can call on you if I need prayer, if I can call on you to truly, give me the wisdom that I'm really desiring. And so I just thank you for that. And I'm just so excited to see what God's going to continue to do in your life, because man, it's just the beginning. And to see you it's you're not an infant, you're like a toddler, and you're just still growing in it.
It's like, okay, I'm past baby, but we're still at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. But let's get a little more personable. I want to know about this amazing thing that's about to happen in about a month and a half. It's coming down. And this is a big deal, guys.
Yeah,
so.
I'm getting married.
Yay! Welcome to the club. So exciting.
I know. I'm like, wow, it's in a new club from now. But I met my fiance, soon to be husband, Michael, at Journey at church. So, and it really all happened in God's timing. So we're just so excited to be tying the knot and having that covenant with God in literally a month.
That's so cool. Yeah. Praying blessing and favor over it, girl, because it is a ride, but it is fun. So hold on. So I'm excited. So excited for you.
Yeah, it's been a gift, a really big blessing from God.
He's a great guy, guys. Great guy. Yeah. Speaking of how God put things into play, you were telling me such a beautiful illustration of what God gave to you last night. We had our church held a living room session where we just put out a carpet. We all come together as a group, and we just get into worship, dive in and just really just ask for more of God. And through this series that we're walking through as a church, and you told me about this vision that God gave you, and I want you to share that with our podcast with our group. And so
yeah,
please tell us a little bit how it started. Where were you in the moment when it happened? And
yeah, I think, we're at worship at night and just praising God. And I think I was just, I was honestly thinking about this podcast and like, Lord, if there's anything like you want to be shared, because there's obviously so many different things that go on once you start walking with God, and so many, it's like the onion, he's like peeling back all the layers of the heart, and it's like, so there's so many things. So I was just praying and like, I think just remembering all the different things he's done, and I was like, okay, God, what is it that you, like, the people need to hear? And he showed me a cookie, which sounds so silly, and I can explain more of, I think, why he chose that for me specifically, but he showed me a cookie, and then he showed me his hands just crumbling it in front of my face, and then he said, you don't want that.
Wow.
And I think, to me, that really showed, like, before I knew God, a few years ago, I was chasing all these things I thought I wanted. It's like I wanted my life to fit into this vision that I had for myself, like just goals, my own personal self and ambitions. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to Hollywood. I'm going to be in film. I'm going to reach this job title by this age, And so I had all these ideas. It's like, okay, I'm going to move here, like all these choices, and like this is how I want to spend my money and all these things. And I think what God showed through that is, in 2020 was a really rough year. Sure, for a lot of people. But it is honestly, I can say, my favorite year so far.
Wow.
Because so much happened, but it was so transformational because God removed so much in my life. But I think that's what he was showing with that cookie. It's like he showed me this cookie, and it's like these could be all these things I want for myself, like, right? Like the devil uses things that are appealing. He doesn't show us a bad thing and be like, oh, you want this? It's like, no.
Preach on that, girl.
He's the best marketing.
He's like, he knows what it is you want.
Yeah. And I think it's like, okay, here's a cookie. You want a cookie? And it's all these things I wanted for my life, but really they just all fell through, and it all led to this turmoil and getting to like a really hard place where it was like, okay, I lost my job. I no longer like could really have like finances to depend on. I started having like a ton of health issues, and which cost a ton of money, and I don't have a job,
Yeah.
And so that was issue. And like, even like, I just like grieving process, like my grandma died. So even just like emotional health, and kind of realizing maybe some friends I was surrounding myself with weren't the best fit for me. So I kind of chose to like not like to separate myself from them. So it was like, you're losing your community, you're losing your financial support, your job, and like really where you thought your career was going, and your health. And it just led me to this place where it's like, what now? And it was like, I felt like I had nothing. And so that's where it was like the crumble of the cookie in that vision. And it was like everything I wanted for myself that I was building on my own strength just fell apart. And it just led me to this place is like, what to do next, because I don't really want to pursue something that's gonna have this happen, and there's got to be a better way out there. Like, what is it? And that's when I really, found God through that. And so I think he was just reminding me of that last night. It was like, you don't want that. Like, you didn't, like, the things you thought you want. It's like, I know you don't want that, because I see your heart, and I know what would fulfill you and what would give you joy. And like the things that we think, like, just like food, it can be consumed, right? And then it's gone. And it's like, I think of like when I eat things that I'm like, oh, that looks really good, but it's like, that was immediate gratification. And then it's like, and then it's gone, and then I have to look for more food. And it's like, there's all these worldly things that I was chasing to fill this void in my heart and just distract myself from like, it's like, oh, okay, because these things that I'm chasing are not actually fulfilling. Yeah. And so I think in that vision, he was just reminding me of that, because, his word says it's like, he's a never-ending life source. Like, if we drink of him, we'll never thirst again. And so it was like, he was just like starting to nudge me along. It's like, there's another source that's gonna give you life, like, child. Like, you this isn't the end, but you run out, you're depleted from what your sources were, and you need to start looking for different wells. Like, so it's like, wow. I think that's like just the crumble. And I think even like, it's funny that he chose a cookie specifically, because for me, I mean, because he wasn't saying like, hey, don't eat cookies. Like, that's not what this vision is.
Listen, I like some cookies, okay?
Yeah, like, you do that, but it's like, he's just I think he was showing where it's like, it's funny because he knows it's like, oh, I'm someone that I love my sweets. Like, I love chocolate. Like, give me a chocolate chip cookie. Like, that's what it was. And then it's like, but those always hurt my stomach afterwards. So it's a love-hate relationship, because I'm like, I feel sick. But it's like, but I still choose to eat the cookie knowing very well I'm going to feel sick. And I think where it's like, it's so hard to choose something where maybe you don't immediately see the benefit in it. And it's like, well, I do want that. And it's like, yeah, like you're chasing worldly things that actually are going to make you sick, or actually not going to fulfill you, and they're going to be gone. And so, like, in that whole vision, I think God was just really just highlighting that, and that he's the healer, and he knows what's going to fulfill us and what's going to be a foundation for us, and a firm foundation.
Wow. That is just like my head is of course I'm just consuming all of the information you just gave me, and I just think, man, there are so many times where we just want the cookie. Even myself, I just think about how before God met me, I grew up in the church, and so I had a big falling out with the church, and I was like, I don't want a God that is represented like this. And so I just started seeking the world on my own and fell into some really bad things, and then eventually I just became this person that wanted to do things on my own. I was very prideful, very self-sufficient. I independent woman, you know. I was like, do not come at me. I can do it on my own. I can build it. I can make it, whatever you need me to do. And what happened was God met me in a place where I was super vulnerable and insecure. And that was within my relationship. Bruce and I had been together for such a long time. And I knew that, like, I wanted something to be like grand within that relationship. I could just see that chocolate chip cookie picture where it's just this beautiful, desirable setting. And then the enemy definitely, I realized that the enemy was the one that was creating the cookie, and it wasn't what God wanted. And so I just, man, I just remember crumbling myself to the floor and just being completely wrecked. And at the same time, God would, like, that's the first time I ever experienced the Lord. Like, truly, he was seeking me from the beginning and reminding me about, you know, hey, I'm the source that you need. Come seek me, and I'm here for you. And he was such a gentleman with it too. But I just remember falling to the floor, and I was crying, and I was desperate for love and affection, and to be heard and seen. And God just wrapped himself, girl, around me. And I get goosebumps right now thinking about it, because it's just the Holy Spirit and his goodness, and he's so gentle and warm. I just think of like the warmth that I felt in that moment, and God met me in such a way. And from then on, I was like, I have to have Jesus in my life. There is something that I didn't know before, but God has something great for me, and I want what he has for me. So that's like a huge but then God moment when he just stepped in and just transformed my heart. So I would love to hear, like, maybe a little more in depth about something that just was a but then God moment. Like, hey, like, this had happened, but then God stepped in.
Wow. I mean, God just moves in so many different moments that are so special. But I think one that particularly comes to mind, which is so cool, because at the time I really wasn't following God at all. I was in college. It was probably like 2017, so a few years before I had kind of come into a relationship with him. But which is just awesome, because God is just so faithful, and he pursues his children, and he wants good things for his children, and he's not gonna forsake us. And so he's just waiting for us to turn to him and accept him. And so I feel like this was just such a great example of that. And it really, like, so I was kind of at a point where something pretty traumatic had happened in my life, and I was just dealing with that trauma, and was kind of experiencing some PTSD symptoms afterwards. Was having a really hard time just acclimating back to regular life. I started seeing a therapist. I just really wasn't sure what to do, and it was causing me like a lot of anxiety. And I remember it was probably a few months after the event happened, and I was leaving my office because I had had a panic attack at work, and I was like, I just need to get out of here. And I was so sick of it. I'm like, this is just like, is this ever going to go away? I don't know. And I can remember clear as day walking out of that office, and God just meeting me in the middle of our courtyard at school. And I just heard him say, I'm sorry this happened to you. I never meant for this to happen, so I'm going to take this pain now. And I felt just the weight come off my shoulders. Like, it was a physical weight I could feel, and just like peace come over me. And it was so weird, because there's only, I mean, you can hear God, like, to this day. Like, I'm like, there's things I've heard God speak to me or whatever, but it's like, to hear that clear of day and just remember this many years later is like, that was one of the most powerful events in my life. And I had faith in God. Like, I believed he existed, but that was pretty much all. You know, I didn't go to church. I hadn't gone to church in a long time. And didn't really understand Jesus or what he did for us. And so God still chose to meet me in that, and to see my pain, and to take it away, and to speak to me. And that was just where I witnessed the power of God. And I was like, who is this?
Yeah.
I was like, what just happened? Because it was like a light switch. It was like I felt so much better. I didn't struggle. I had been struggling to even sleep at night. I would wake up with so many nightmares throughout the night, and just have to, like, I would be sweating so much, and that stopped. I could sleep peacefully through the night. Wow. And so it was wild, and it was cool because I witnessed something before I really even knew who he was. But that's how good he is. It's like, he'll go ahead and do this for you because it's grace. You know, that's the grace he has for us. He's not doing it because we deserve it. He's giving us a gift because he wants to give it to us. And so that's just like, I feel from that moment was like that curiosity came in of like, who would do this for me? And like, how did that even happen? Because I couldn't comprehend. It's like, I was trying everything on my own strength of like, okay, how do I deal with this trauma? And God just did it for me in like a snap. And I think like, if anyone's like, oh, you know, I don't know if God could heal this, or why would God do this for me? Like, I'm far from him. I don't know him. It's like, well, he can. He's done it for so many people, and he did it for me. And I mean, I know I was not deserving of it. So he's capable of it.
Wow. All I can picture in this moment is like God just reminded me of the woman that bled for 12 years. If I can just touch just the fringe of it, I know that I will be healed. And you had such a faith that you walked out and you said, God, I need you to take this from me. And it was, wow, that's just such a beautiful part of a testimony that will last for lifetimes. And I know that there's so many women and even men out there that have gone through trauma, and that they can like plug in their own, this has happened to me, but I'm really in desperate need of somebody that can take that weight, like you said, it would just lift it off of you, or that warmth, that hug that I felt when I was on the floor, that God can just do such a big thing in their life. And I just thank you for your vulnerability to be able to share that. And you know, it's his story, and he can do whatever he wants with his story. And the fact that he chose, like, hey, I'm going to give her the courage and the boldness to say, I want to share this moment. I want you to share this moment. I'm just so thankful for that. There's somebody that this podcast is going to reach where that's going to hit and resonate in their heart in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, we live in such a broken world, and like we're all in search of a savior. Yes. Even if you want to, like, it's like the whole independent thing. Even if you want to not believe you are, it's like we are.
We are. Absolutely.
And so it's just great that God can move beyond that and then use our testimonies. It's like we're called to be witnesses of Christ and to share the good news and share what he's done, and other people can have their faith influenced by that. So it's cool when God moves in just miraculous ways that we get to go then glorify him by sharing it with other people and having their faith be rocked.
Yeah, I am just like so excited to see what God does throughout this podcast, and I'm just so incredibly thankful again for you being here. I'm gonna say thank you a bajillion times probably, and people are gonna get tired of it, but I'm thankful. So this is just something that God's gonna take it and move it. And you guys make sure to look up Paige on Instagram or on any other platform.
Yeah, that's pretty much my platform.
I'll make sure to post her at thumbnail underneath the description link. And you can, again, find this podcast on Spotify as well. And I just thank you again for tuning in. Bye, guys.
Bye.